We learned some things once we launched our ecosystem to the space station on orbit that we didn't anticipate when we designed it. For example, we had designed our ventilation system assuming the aisleways in the space station would be pristine. And instead, you've seen probably photos, there's stuff everywhere. And so we had to react to things now blocking ventilation ducts, and for the crew that's important because we rely on the ventilation to provide adequate mixing of the air. Differences in local environment we learned can affect our hardware. For example, one of our smoke detectors ended up being in a flow path that made it get a lot dirtier than the others and required routine maintenance. We learned that dust is everywhere, and we built up these dust bunnies in front of our intermodule ventilation ducts that caused us some problems, and we had to put a filter in the system essentially and clean those out regularly. One of the biggest lessons we learned on orbit was that we didn't anticipate in ground test is that astronauts lose more calcium in their urine on orbit due to bone loss than we knew. And when we tested the urine processor on the ground, we had it concentrating urine to 85%. We removed 85% of the water. When we tried to do that on orbit, the calcium precipitated out much sooner than we thought and failed the hardware. We're designing workarounds for that now, but it took us a while to understand what was going on, and it led back to just a difference in the human body on orbit versus the human body on the ground. Another thing we learned on orbit is that bugs or microbes will grow even though you've done your best job to design so that they won't. We had several instances where fungal growth ended up forming in our water system and clogging things up. Things are wetter on orbit, condensate collects, and so you have to be careful that microbes are not going to grow with things just being humid. So that's something to pay attention to for future missions. And just in general, I think for future missions, we need to realize that no matter how well you think you understand the environment you're designing for, things are going to happen that you did not anticipate. The key is to design the equipment as robustly as possible and to be maintainable as possible on orbit to resolve these issues as they come up.